White House meeting on whether to separate migrant families. Can you expand on that? Do you know about that?
Yeah, I could expand on it far beyond our program, but let me try to give you the shorter version. At the very beginning of the administration, the White House pushed DHS, when John Kelly was secretary, to institute a policy of ripping kids apart from their parents at the border. It didn't matter whether they showed up at a port of entry or crossed illegally. They said, let's rip them apart, and that'll scare migrants so that they don't show up at the border. Kelly rejected that out of hand. Nielsen rejected that out of hand. So what the Attorney General in the White House decided to do was they said, well, look, we'll just prosecute everyone who crosses illegally. That ended up having the effect, because there weren't enough resources to process people quickly, of leaving them apart from their children for an unacceptably long period of time. Secretary Nielsen at the time was very, very concerned about that potential backlog after the Attorney General announced the policy. She pushed back against the White House again and again. The White House got so frustrated that finally, at that date in the spring, they sat down with a number of members of the cabinet and senior staff, and they held a vote. And they said, look, Secretary Nielsen says we're not ready, but do you all think we're ready? Do we have the resources to do this? Look, I wasn't in the room for that, but I was very aware after the fact. I'd heard readouts from those conversations. She was the one individual who said, no, I'm not raising my hand. We are not ready to do this. She was outvoted, and the Department of Homeland Security was put in the impossible position of implementing this policy and trying to do it quickly enough so that children wouldn't be apart from their parents for an unacceptably long period of time while they went through the justice system. This is a textbook example of how policymaking went wrong in the Trump administration, and it emanated from the top. The president is responsible for this. Now, granted, a lot of us, some of this is on us, right? I mean, we could have done more to pump the brakes. The secretary certainly tried to behind the scenes, and then finally, rightfully, we convinced the president to sign an executive order that summer ending the policy. But as I've said before, Anderson, almost every single month that we were in the administration after that, the president said he wanted to reinstitute the policy and go further and revert back to that version they'd proposed in year one, that sickening version of let's just rip them apart to scare migrants from coming to the border. That was one of the reasons that I ended up leaving this administration.
You also have talked about what happened behind the scenes when the president threatened to, quote, bus and dump immigrants in sanctuary cities, which was, he talked about, I mean, that was highly reported. What was going on behind the scenes with that?
So in roughly February of 2019, the president called us, and he said exactly those words you just used. He said he wanted us to bus and dump all the illegal immigrants we picked up at the border and go drop them in democratic sanctuary cities, basically a way to punish these cities because they would refuse to turn over illegal immigrants to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We had our lawyers look at this. Anderson, we didn't need to have our lawyers look at this. This was patently illegal on its face. This would be misuse of federal funds. That's not a legitimate law enforcement operation. So I was the one who personally went back to the White House, to the Chief of Staff's office, to several other senior advisors' offices, and I said, listen, we think this is illegal. You need to let the president know this is not legal. The president called us again and said, you need to do this. The secretary at the time said, no, sir, we're not able to do this. And of course, as is the case in the Trump administration, within days, as I remember, the president went out and tweeted that this policy idea was actively under consideration, even though we had told him it was illegal. Anderson, this won't even be on page 14 of any newspaper today. But again, we have another example of the president of the United States being told something is unlawful to do, yet he'll still try to go forward and implement those types of policies. There's a litany of examples of him embracing and trying to pursue illegal behavior.
We all know that the president watches a lot of television. You say that one host served as the de facto chief of staff.
If you give me 35 seconds, I'm going to share with you 3 simple tips on how I sold over 3.
Yeah, this is really disheartening, but there was a period of time where, at first jokingly, we would say that Fox late night host Lou Dobbs was the sort of shadow chief of staff of the Trump administration. Why did we say that? Because the president would call us and he would say, and pardon my language, he would say, why the hell didn't you watch Lou Dobbs last night? You need to listen to Lou. What Lou says is what I want to do. So if Lou Dobbs peddled a conspiracy theory on late night television or made an erroneous claim about what should be done either at the border or with some law enforcement operation, the president wanted us to be tuning in every night. My response to that was, I don't have any time to watch Lou Dobbs in the evening. You've got us running a 250,000 person department, and we're trying to play, we're trying to guard against some of the most severe threats to this country. We can't be watching Lou Dobbs and taking our orders from him, but this happened on a regular basis.
You also talked about a meeting involving school violence that didn't go well.
Well, this is an example, Anderson, of the president being unable to focus on things that are very important. I think this was around the end of 2018. We went to meet with the president to talk about a very important issue, school safety. Okay, our mission was to tell him what the recommendations we had developed were around keeping kids from being shot in classrooms around our country. All right, a sobering meeting, an important subject. We went in to discuss it. Within minutes of bringing up the subject, the president was instantly distracted, wanted to talk about the wall, and in fact, the words he used that day were, he said, "I want my wall to be a beautiful work of art. A beautiful work of art. Go make it a work of art, and here's how to design it." I'm sitting there in my hands with recommendations about how to keep our nation's children safe in their classrooms. The president doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to talk about the aesthetics of his border wall. This says a lot about his priorities. This says a lot about his indiscipline.
Taking a break from time to time.
Good work. New order available. Please access delivery terminal for further information.
Presidential nominee Joe Biden criticizing the Trump administration response to the pandemic in his acceptance speech last night. Joining me now is the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. He leads the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much. Good to see you this morning.
Morning, John.
You do lead the Coronavirus Task Force. As of this morning, 174,000 Americans have lost their lives to this pandemic. As we sit here this morning, what is the projection you're looking at for the number of Americans who will lose their lives by the end of the year?
Well, John, we're continuing to work every day to save lives, and our focus will remain there. We're encouraged to see cases declining across the Sun Belt, holding steady in the Midwest, but we all continue to have a role to play. But I must tell you, listening to Joe Biden last night,
Mr. Vice President, about
John,
about 1,000 people newly reported deaths yesterday.
Well, let me be very clear, John, if I may. Let me be clear. We mourn with those who mourn. There's never been a day gone by we haven't thought about families who've lost loved ones in the midst of this pandemic. But I must tell you, I truly believe that when President Trump suspended all travel from China before the end of January and stood up the White House Coronavirus Task Force, an action that Joe Biden criticized as xenophobic, essentially said it was racist for the president to suspend travel from China. The reality is that bought us an invaluable amount of time to begin work on a vaccine. We're already in phase 3 clinical trials. To stand up our national response, we're doing 800,000 tests a day to develop hundreds of millions of medical supplies, thousands of ventilators.
Mr. Vice President?
And I got a news flash for Joe Biden, John, and that is we think there is a miracle around the corner because the president called on pharmaceutical companies. We believe it's very likely that we'll have one or more vaccines for the coronavirus before the end of this year. All of that's a tribute to President Trump's leadership. And so while we grieve with those who've lost loved ones, I truly believe that that had we waited and not suspended travel to China and not been able to stand up our response as Joe Biden wanted us to do, we'd have lost hundreds of thousands of more Americans.
My question, just so people know, was how many more Americans will lose their lives by the end of the year? The IMHE model that you look at, I know, projects it could be 300,000 by the end of the year. One more thing on China. The president did suspend travel from China, did not suspend travel from Europe until mid-March, and a lot of the cases that did come to the eastern United States are believed to come of there. And also one more thing on China. At the same time he was suspending travel, he noted that President Xi, China's been working very hard to contain coronavirus. I want to thank President Xi. My question to you, again, about where we are and where we will be, stems from this. On June 16th, you wrote, "We are winning the fight against the invisible enemy." And you said the panic is overblown.
Hey, Sam,
you said that on June 16th. Since then, 53.
Stay strong. We're all rooting for you to finish the job and come home safe. By the way, I've made more progress in a certain investigation. It seems that Clifford Unger willingly put his own child in the care of the scientists conducting the BB experiments. But he did so completely unaware of their true intentions. This is pure speculation, but I think when Cliff found out about their plans, he attempted to reclaim custody. And after he failed, the BB remained in the program's care. In which case, he would have every reason to bear a grudge towards the president, the woman who allowed it all to happen, don't you think? But just because President Strand is dead, doesn't mean his hate died with her. No, I think he redirected it towards Bridges, towards you and Amelie and anyone close to the director. And now that hate is driving him to set in motion the last Stranding, to bring an end to the world as we know it. Why else would Cliff hold Amelie hostage on the beach? He must know that she's an EE. There's no time to lose. You have to save her and the director. Though I still don't understand how he managed to travel to her beach in the first place. There must be more to their relationship. I'll see what I can find.
3,000 more Americans have died. More than 3 million more Americans have been infected with coronavirus. So how was the concern overblown?
Well, John, what was at that time, as you well remember, we were seeing cases declining from the dramatic rise in cases and the loss of nearly 2,500 Americans a day at the height of this pandemic. And most of our scientists believed that we were well on our way toward lowering cases, and that perhaps
Got a moment, Sam? It's about So there's no way he could have made the jump to Amelie's beach if they didn't share a strong personal connection, right? Well, I looked, and I couldn't see one. The network should have contained something, anything, but there was nothing whatsoever. His entire life prior to his tenure with Bridges has been redacted. His name, his past, everything. There's no telling who he was. Which led me to consider another possibility. What if it isn't the director and Amelie who have a connection, but the director and Clifford Unger? And what if that connection is what facilitated the director's jump to Amelie's beach? If it's those two who have a personal history, then it might explain why Cliff is holding the director hostage as well. But even if that were the case, it doesn't answer the bigger question. How the hell did the two of them end up on Amelie's beach?
Sam, Hartman here. There's something else I'd like you to consider. A guess, albeit an educated one, concerning Cliff's objective. Somehow, with the aid of the chiral network, our individual beaches have begun to coalesce, resulting in the formation of a single massive seam. Should this process continue, there is a risk that BTs will flood across into our world, bringing about a death stranding on a heretofore unprecedented scale. Now, Clifford Unger's battlefields and my own beach appear to be unaffected by this phenomenon, existing entirely in isolation. They do not and have never intersected with others. But what if there were another class of beach, one that exists on a higher plane, that was responsible for setting this process in motion? And what if the beach in question were none other than Amelie's? Cliff may have summoned the director, but I believe his true aim was to seize control of Amelie's beach, to exploit its power over every other beach, and trigger the last stranding. It's the only rational explanation for Cliff's actions, which is why you have to stop him.
If Hartman's right, then we're in serious trouble. Using the chiral network in Amelie's beach to trigger the last stranding? That's why Higgs went after Amelie, wasn't it? If it was Cliff who put him up to it. Yeah, it all fits. With the last stranding, he'll finally have his revenge against the world that stole his life and his child. You've got to stop him, Sam. You've got to make the jump to Amelie's beach as soon as possible. Get in and get her back. It's our only hope. If you can't, then we're all doomed.
Be there for you and your mom, no matter what. I couldn't just go off and get myself killed anymore. Couldn't leave you all alone. I couldn't. I had it all wrong. All wrong. Being a father didn't make me scared. It made me brave. I'm sorry. Sorry it took me so long. Don't make the same mistake. Be yourself. Be free.
Captain, I need you to hand it over.
Shoot him, John. Shoot him! I gave you an order. Shoot him!
my dear.
Ride him up. We need reinforcements. Go!
Where's my baby? I was... I just want you to be happy. I'll make it right.
Ride him up. Reinforcements. Move.
Sky Hartman. I'll make it right.
We need reinforcements. Move.
Where's my baby?
Open fire!
Baby, we're getting out of here. I promise. Give me back my baby. Are you Clifford Unger? Who are you? Are you the father? They told me your name was Sam Porter. But you were Sam Bridges. My bridge to the future. Sam, you bring people together. You're that bridge to the future. Come on, Sam. Stand up. Take BB and get out of this place. There's nothing I can do for your wife. I'm sorry. Now, if she orders me to do something, I have to do it. I have to. But I served under you first. And your family doesn't deserve this. Any of this. Why are you helping me? If they catch you. Because you saved my life, sir. Again and again. When the brass sent us into the jaws of hell, it was you that brought us home.
The coronavirus, like the
Sam, are you okay? I reviewed your logs. It looks like you were caught in a supercell and emerged an instant later on the other side of Ground Zero. Not far from Port Knot City.
How'd I wind up here then?
Remember Victor? He found you lying unconscious by the harbor and brought you inside.
I think Cliff might be Lou's father. He said, give me back my BB.
Impossible. Cliff was born...
He gave me this. Maybe he's trying to tell us something. Something about the BBs, maybe. About how they were made. It didn't feel like he was trying to hurt us. It felt like he just wanted to talk.
But you said you saw him holding the director captive on the beach.
Yeah. They must have some history we don't know about. Them and Bridget.
Funny you should say that. I've got something you should see. Found it in the archives while I was digging around. It's a pre-recorded message from the director labeled, "If I don't come back."
This message is insurance, in case something happens to me. For Bridget's eyes only. And I sure as hell hope that's who's watching. I got a little present from Amelie. Said she'd take me to the beach if I wanted. But I'd need this doll to show me the way. It's a trap. It has to be. But I've decided to play along. You've all been playing along too, haven't you? You know this mask hides more than just my face. Well, Amelie's a blank slate too. No past, no record she ever existed. She's a ghost. And the thing about ghosts, I never met Amelie in person. Have you? Ever seen her in the flesh, shook her hand, touched her? The original team we sent was divided into two groups. Amelie was with the first, Mama and Hartman were with the second. They had no direct contact with her.
Yes. Amelie's group was wiped out in Edgenorth City. Everyone but her. Everyone who could say whether or not she exists.
Bullshit. She's real. We've touched, all right? She and I both.
Well, I've only ever interacted with her hologram.
I'm telling you, I've met her. In person. Lots of times when I was little.
Yes, but on the beach.
Here's what the president had to say about her daughter. Amelie was born on the beach. There her Ka remained, though her Ha came to this world. This division of body and soul forced her to spend most of her childhood in the hospital. But though her health was poor, her Doom's numbers were off the charts. Her supernatural talents blossomed as she grew older and overcame her limitations. But by the time she was 20, she could travel to and from the beach, body and all. And that's where she started spending all of her time. Now, if you wanted to get in touch with Amelie, it was via hologram or nothing. The president insisted on that. I swore an oath to the president and to America. As far as I was concerned, her word was law. So when she said Amelie was her daughter and the best candidate to succeed her, I believed it. But when the archives were restored, I couldn't resist testing out my access privileges. And that's how I found out Bridget was diagnosed with uterine cancer in her 20s and couldn't have children. You see, doesn't add up, does it? There's no way Amelie could be Bridget's biological daughter. So where'd she come from? Who is she? Is she even real? How can we be sure that Amelie is an extinction entity when we don't even know if Amelie is Amelie? Hell, for all I know, the EE theory might be bullshit. But if it's not, if she's the cause of the death stranding, then I have to accept her invitation. I've loaded my gun with hermetic rounds. Sam's blood. It connects my gun to her, to me, to him, all of us. Which means I should be able to take it with me to the beach. I'm gonna stop what she started by stopping her. One last confession. I'm just a man. No powers, nothing special. Don't have dooms, I can't repatriate like Sam either. Don't know the first thing about dying, I had never tried it. Yeah. I've been to hell. Every single battlefield was hell. But no matter how terrible it got, I never died. Because all I ever did was run from death. Well, I gotta go. She's calling for me. Bridges, don't let me down.
After he recorded this, the director jumped to the beach. Or rather, Amelie summoned him there.
He had a gun to Bridget when I saw him. Then Cliff showed up, took him away.
I thought he went to the beach to confront Amelie.
Yeah, she was there too. She was the one who got me out.
It's so obvious to me now. I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. It was Amelie who...
What happened?
The chiral network dropped out. According to Lakna, it won't be long before it's completely unusable.
So all our hard work was for nothing.
Let me finish what I was saying, Sam.
I'll tell him.
Fragile. You look like shit. You should be resting.
I know. I need to tell you something. I had a little chat with Higgs back on the beach. Didn't take much to make him talk.
You say why he betrayed you?
He said it was part of her plan.
What?
She was their leader. The terrorist void-outs, the whole extinction agenda, Amelie was behind it all.
Like hell she was.
I know you don't want to believe it, but it lines up with what Die Hard Man said. Higgs turned on me after he met Amelie. At first, he was looking to expand his territory, and I had a power he could use. At least, that's how he ended up working with me. He was no terrorist. He just wanted to reach more people. But then she shows up with abilities that put mine to shame. Hell, she could even control BTs. So Higgs decides to go with her. And that's when she turned him into her agent of extinction.
Amelie gave Higgs his power.
Yep, she made him her Homo Demens.
What about Bridget? You care to tell me what she was doing on the beach? You got an answer for that too?
I know it's a lot to swallow. But Higgs said himself that Amelie is an extinction entity. I looked inside his pod, and there was no BB in there. Take a good look at what was. It's the same doll Die Hard Man had. This is their bridge baby. There's this idea that the terrorists brought back BB tech and Bridges was just following suit. It's garbage. Their methods and yours are completely different. Your BB links you to the world of the dead. Their doll links them to Amelie and her beach.
You know who else had dolls like this? Cliff. He was carrying them on the battlefields. Cliff, Higgs, the director. All three of them were drawn in and controlled by this extinction entity. And who is this EE really? Is it Bridget? Is it Amelie?
All I can say is that the answers are on the beach. What she wants and why.
If we get to the bottom of that, then maybe we can still avert the last stranding.
You've got to find her, Sam.
Whoever she really is.
She's waiting for you on the beach. Hurry back east.
Sam, the connection's unstable, so I'll keep this short. We have a job for you. Fragile's condition is deteriorating. If she slips into a coma, there's a chance her soul might become stranded on the beach. She needs cryptobiotes fast. Luckily for us, Fragile Express keeps a stockpile there in Port North City. So we'd like you to grab some for us while you're in the area. All the details are on the terminal upstairs. Please, Sam, this is critical.
You know what day it is today, baby? Today would be a very special day if your mommy hadn't. You're not born yet. But the more candles, the merrier, right? Soon it'll be time for you to come out into the real world. I promise. And then, we can have a real party. Well, happy birthday.
Sam, check the terminal for available orders.
All weapons. Will be locked until departure. All clear. Welcome, Sam Porter Bridges.
Don't forget, that container isn't airtight. You can't afford...
Order assigned. Stand clear. Vehicle ready. Have a pleasant journey.
We've been getting near constant timefall in this region for a while now. As a result, everything you've built for us out here has been completely destroyed. The good news is, we managed to recover all cargo stored on site and transferred it to the Capital Knot City Distro Center. As for the not-so-good news, Cairo printers are currently unusable due to the network instability. Given the circumstances, you might want to consider turning to your fellow porters for assistance. But I'll leave that up to you, Sam. I'm sure you'll come through for us. You always do.
flu would be seasonal and that we would have a summer respite. But sometime around Memorial Day, things changed. But all along the way, I think
so you
the
were wrong.
response
You
of
were
the
wrong
American
on June
people.
16th. Were you wrong on June 16th when you said the panic was overblown?
Well, CNN was wrong a lot early in the year as well, John. We've all been learning all along the way about this coronavirus. But what's remarkable is because of the president's leadership, where we've reinvented testing, we're doing 800,000 tests a day, because we pulled in American industry to literally create the gowns and the masks and the supplies for our incredible doctors and nurses. Because we had major manufacturing repurposed lines to manufacture ventilators. I learned yesterday at our task force meeting, we have more than 115,000 ventilators in the national stockpile today. We've had medicines that have been developed like remdesivir. We hope soon that there'll be an approval of what's called convalescent plasma. And as I said, we have several companies that are in phase 3 clinical trials for a vaccine that I believe we'll have before the end of this year. But we're also not waiting on that. We're actually manufacturing millions of doses of a vaccine, so the moment the FDA says it's safe and effective, we'll be able to distribute it to the American people. And so this is a response to the American people that can be proud of. The fact that Joe Biden last night said that this economy won't come back.
Joe Biden hasn't been running the country. Joe Biden hasn't been coordinating the coronavirus pandemic.
But John, Joe Biden said last night that this economy will not come back until the coronavirus is gone. The reality is, newsflash for Joe Biden, the economy's coming back. In the last 3 months, 9 million Americans have gone back to work because of the solid foundation that President Trump poured. And I think the only threat to this American economic comeback is a Joe Biden presidency. It's amazing when you think, as you talk about the coronavirus pandemic, Joe Biden wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion in the middle of a pandemic.
And we'll get to this.
That'll be a prescription for
You're talking about the comeback
kind
again.
of economic downturn
In terms
that
of
we
a
can only
metric,
imagine.
in terms of a metric, we're still 13 million jobs less.
Right.
Than where we were when we began.
We lost John, you're right. We lost 22 million
right, and we're
jobs.
down 13 million jobs. We're down 13 million jobs. Jobless claims that were reported yesterday just rose again over a million a week. Again, just so our viewers know that. On the pandemic,
I want your viewers on CNN to have the facts. So let me be clear.
You talked about testing. Testing is down this week from last week.
We had a total number of 22 million jobs lost in 3 months, and it's a testament to the resilience of the American economy, to the foundation that President Trump poured. We've had 9 million Americans go back to work. We think the American comeback will continue. Although I was struck last night, I think I heard Joe Biden not only advocate his $4 trillion tax increase, his $2 trillion Green New Deal, but I think he also opposed a payroll tax cut for working Americans.
Republicans in the Senate.
Republicans
in the Senate. Mr. Vice President, Republicans in the Senate also oppose a payroll tax cut, largely because it does not go to help people who are unemployed. I have one more question on the pandemic for you.
We're helping people who are unemployed, John, if I may. We're helping people who are unemployed. The president called on the Congress to extend unemployment benefits when they didn't do it.
Well, he didn't meet with them.
We extended unemployment benefits through executive action, and about a dozen states have already begun to implement it.
Mr. Vice President, in your state, in your home state,
President Trump and I believe we also ought to give relief to the millions of Americans that are working with a payroll tax cut between now and the end of the year. Joe Biden actually said that working Americans shouldn't be able to keep more of what they earn in the middle of a global pandemic. Higher taxes, opposing tax cuts is no prescription for bringing this economy back.
I want to talk about Notre Dame, which is in your home state. There have been a number of universities that have reopened and then had to go to online-only education. I could ask about anyone. I'll ask about Notre Dame because it's in Indiana. Again, you are the leader of the coronavirus task force. You have called for schools to reopen around the country.
Right.
So what then specifically do you think went wrong at Notre Dame?
Love Singapore, love free delivery on local food and shops with Food Panda. Order now.
One day, I opened GrabFood expecting to see the same restaurants I'd been ordering from. But then I found myself scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling I thought I was hallucinating from working from home for so long. Suddenly, it was like every restaurant in Singapore could be delivered to my door.
When the circuit breaker was announced, we knew we needed to find a way to bring more choices to our customers and help restaurants expand their reach and customer base.
Even as early as March, we were getting less dine-in customers. Island-wide delivery allowed us to reach new customers. We even got an order from as far as 25 km away.
So last time I doing Grab car only. Now I'm also doing both Grab car and the Grab foods delivery.
Well, I fully support Father Jenkins' leadership at Notre Dame. I know they've taken a half step back with bringing people back on campus, and we'll defer to that. But look, John, we've got to get our kids back to school. We can't let kids fall behind academically. We also know that millions of American children, whether they're special needs or learning disabilities, or children in underprivileged families, get nutrition support at our schools. And so the president and I made it clear that we want to get our kids back on campus. CDC has for months been issuing guidance.
But
remember,
CDC
actually said that it's a public health priority to get kids back to school.
But I'm asking questions you're not answering.
And we're absolutely determined to make sure that K-12 and our universities have the support they need to do it. As a leader of the task force,
what do you think went wrong at Notre Dame so that people can look at it as an example for something to avoid?
Well, I think Father Jenkins, and by the way, I love Notre Dame, but I think Father Jenkins said that people were congregating off campus, and so they wanted to take a pause in classroom learning to make sure that they have that under control. We respect that, but the priority has to be we got to get our kids back to school. We got to make sure that faculty, teachers like my wife, are taken care of. It's one of the reasons why Department of Homeland Security this week added teachers and those who deal in institutional settings with children to our list of essential workers in America.
Right.
We
does
want
that
our
mean
teachers to
does
know
that mean
they're
yes or no?
a
Does that
priority
mean
for
they'll be forced to work?
and
Does
other
that
suppliers.
does that mean yes or no? Quickly on this. Does that mean that they will be forced to work if they come into contact with someone with coronavirus?
No, absolutely not, John. From early on, we provided a list of essential workers that we encouraged to participate while we asked Americans to go through those 45 days to slow the spread, to stay away from work, but to keep our economy rolling, to keep our healthcare economy rolling, to keep food on the table. We recognize that there were essential workers in America. What it does, John, is it prioritizes supplies and PPE and testing. So we want our teachers to know we're going to continue to prioritize their health, their safety, the safety of our schools, but we're going to work every day. And states around the country are safely reopening as we speak. We're going to continue to support that and support our teachers.
I want to ask, at the White House, the president seemed to embrace QAnon, which is a group that the FBI has warned very likely motivates some domestic extremists to commit criminal, sometimes violent activity. This is a group that peddles theories that say that some politicians and high-profile Hollywood celebrities are members of a satanic cult that are also cannibals. They say that coronavirus is being disseminated by George Soros and Bill Gates with the help of 5G networks. The president says they love America. So how do those beliefs embody a love of America?
Well, you said the president seemed to embrace it. I didn't hear that.
He said they love America, Mr. Vice President.
I don't know anything. I heard the president talk about he appreciates people that support him very generally.
Do you believe they love America? Do you believe they love America?
I don't know anything about that conspiracy theory, John.
How can you not know about it,
people
given
that are
how much it's
involved
been on the news? How can you not know about it at this point?
Well, honestly, John, I don't know anything about that. I've heard about it. We dismiss conspiracy theories around here.
Will you dismiss
out
it?
of hand.
Will you dismiss it? Will you dismiss it?
I just did, John.
No, you didn't.
Dismiss conspiracy theorists out of hand. But the point is, this president's going to continue to take our case all across this country. the choice in this election has never been clearer, and the stakes have never been higher. I mean, I'm pleased to be on CNN and speaking with you, but it was amazing to see the Democrats this week painting such a grim picture of America, but all along the way, they never mentioned the violence that's tearing apart and claiming lives in cities around the country. And remarkably, Joe Biden last night never mentioned China.
So, Mr. Vice President,
after he condemned the president for suspending travel from China,
but you didn't answer my question.
After years of economic surrender to China that cost tens of thousands of American jobs.
Let me ask about the RNC in just a second.
Joe Biden never talked about China.
Ben Sass said QAnon is nuts. Leaders call conspiracy theories. Will you call what they espouse conspiracy theory?
I just did, John. I called it a conspiracy theory. I said I don't have any time for it, and I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
And frankly, honestly, John, I get it. I mean, I get that the media, particularly CNN, chases after shiny objects.
This is
but
the shiny
the
object.
American people, we're going through a time of testing.
This a dangerous group. This isn't a shiny
We're going through a time of testing. We're coming to a time for choosing. The Democrats painted a picture of America that was grim and negative. Joe Biden laid out, you have to look through the platitudes to hear it, that Joe Biden laid out an agenda for higher taxes, socialized medicine, open borders, abortion on demand, and continuing to walk away from the strong support for the men and women of law enforcement. We're going to present a contrast to the American people next week.
On law enforcement.
That's about how we're going to bring our economy back.
Yes, you did it, Sam! Oh, I could kiss you, you sweet son of a bitch! I thought it was all over.
Looks like a path.